at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. I'm Anthony Robertson, and here with me is the Horst, Alex Horst. What's up, Horsty?
What's going on, everybody? I'm excited today. It's time to talk about the best-looking and most important guys on the field, the offensive linemen.
Okay. And Alex?
Jimmy Garoppolo has a bone to pick with you. I know he thinks they're very important, but best looking, it's the line, man. That was definitely the line.
Sorry I botched the introduction there, Alex, but kind of got caught off guard with the best looking thing.
That was impressive, man.
Yeah.
He threw a curveball in there. Got to stay on our toes.
Yeah, the 49ers run game is so important, and the 49ers have made some changes, to the kind of the main force, the offensive line. So we're going to get into that. Horst, how big was it adding Trent Williams to the team?
It was huge. It was the single most important move they made this offseason. You lose a guy like Joe Staley, who you never want to see go. Joe's a great player for many years on the 49ers, one of the all-time greats. To me, a Hall of Fame player. We'll see if that happens. But to replace him with Trent Williams only for a fifth-round pick was an amazing opportunity. There's three players that have graded the highest over the last 5 years at the left tackle position. One is Joe Staley, one is Jason Peters, and one is Trent Williams. So they basically were able to replace Joe Staley with a little bit younger and less injury-prone version of himself. It might be an upgrade, honestly, as much as I hate to say it. Trent Williams is a great player. He's a perennial All-Pro, Pro Bowler, and to add him for only a fifth-round pick was amazing. They had one huge hole on the offensive line and completely shored it up. And that does not happen very often.
Todd. Let me tell you about Trent Williams, 8-time Pro Bowler, voted in the NFL Top 100 7 straight years. I'll get off of my Mel Kiper. But in all seriousness, now he's an 8-time Pro Bowler. He was voted into the NFL Top 100 7 straight seasons. That's how much the guys in the league respect what he has done in his body of work over that time. Never more than 10 penalties in one season, and that was in 2014, pretty early into this guy's career. Horst brought it up, and he mentioned it. It was the big thing for me was the health aspect. Bringing in a guy who's younger. I know he's coming off of the tumor and the whole debacle with that the Washington football team and their whole situation there and everything that's going on over there. That's a crazy situation with that group. He just desperately wanted to be in a better situation. He gets to that better situation now. He's going to have an opportunity to prove himself, and it's going to the health and stability that he's going to bring to the team. Staley was up there in age. We got at least another 4, maybe 5 good years left of this guy's career where it's going to be peak, maybe not getting into his twilight. We didn't have to overpay. We severely underpaid for this guy. 75.6 PFF ranking in 2018. The most sacks he's ever allowed in a season was 8, and that was playing for that Washington football team. So I don't see how this is anything else other than like the steal of the offseason. It has to be. No other team made a move this big.
These are the kind of trades that I like. The ones that you give up the least amount possible and you get the most you can possibly get. Trent Williams is a top 3 offensive tackle in the league, and he shores up the left tackle spot that was, desperately needed. And I think that, Staley at the end of his career, this is definitely an improvement over the old Joe Staley, only because he had so many injuries and stuff. But, Trent Williams is just a freak of nature. He's a whole different level of beast. And, he had so much success playing for Kyle Shanahan in that system. When he was playing for Kyle in 2013, he had an 88.9 run blocking grade. And that is crazy. This guy can pirouette. This guy can make mistakes and still, come back and make a block. This is the kind of guy that you don't worry about. This is the Seahawks. You got Bruce Irvin. we're not worried. We got Trent Williams. He just completely, takes out the top rusher on the edge. And so whenever they're lined up on that side, it really has zero effect. I think it's going to have more effect on Mike McGlinchey, because they're going to be coming after Mike McGlinchey in a big way, because this guy is just a beast. And there was no bigger move in the NFL, in my opinion, than this one right here. And I think it was so subtle that people don't even really think about it because he's an offensive lineman. But it just took Kyle Shanahan's offense to a whole nother level, and the offensive line to a whole nother level, which the offensive line was already pretty good. And speaking of the offensive line, Alex, are Laken Tomlinson, Mike McGlinchey, and Weston Richburg locks to start on the offensive line this year?
No, but only because Weston Richburg I don't think is going to be playing week 1. I don't think he's going to be 100% healthy just yet. Outside of that, the answer to that question is yes. Weston Richburg, he's going to be starting once he's healthy. The rest of them are locks. I don't see how they can't be. The work Tomlinson did last year for us at that left guard position was huge. McGlinchey had a pretty solid season all of last year. He had his ups and his downs, but once he got rolling, it was great, especially when Brunskill came in. He really stood out. You could see the job that he did. He really stepped up and played well. Both of them did on that right side of the line. I don't see how it could be anyone but those three guys. They are for sure locked in.
If we're talking when they're all healthy, I don't see any of those three not starting. Laken Tomlinson's kind of been a revelation. He was a first-round pick that was considered a bust in Detroit. The Niners picked him up on the cheap, I think, for a fifth-round pick. And he's done nothing but he's become a top 20 guard since he came to the Niners. He'll never be an all-pro, but he's a very solid starting guard in that spot. And I think it showed because the Niners gave him a 3-year, $18 million extension coming into last year. So they must be big on him. $6 million a year is a pretty good number to pay a guard. Richburg, he doesn't always grade out the highest. Now he's been injury prone on the Niners, but he kind of makes up for it with his intelligence. And he's so important with calling the blocking scheme, picking up the blitzes, that kind of stuff. And in Kyle's system, that's so important. He's really good at that stuff. Hopefully we can get a fully healthy version of Richburg, because it's obvious to the eye when Richburg goes down and another player comes in for him, the difference in their line in the middle. And then Mike McGlinchey is just getting better and better. His run blocking has always been a top-tier NFL run blocker at tackle. His pass pro has gotten better every year. He only gave up 5 sacks last year, he's improved in that aspect every year. I think McGlinchey still could develop into a Pro Bowl tackle. He's still a step away from that to me because his pass blocking is still lacking a little bit, but he's gotten better at it every year. So I think that those three guys are three pretty solid players, with McGlinchey still having the potential to develop into a star.
Laken Tomlinson is a really good player, and I think he finally got to a system that fits kind of his skill set. He's a really good left guard. He's number 23 overall in the PFF rankings as far as guards in the NFL, and that's up there as one of the better ones there is. So I definitely think that he's been a player that's improved. I like his pulling. He does a lot of pulling and trapping, and he's good at it. And, it's difficult to play in his own scheme like this. It's not just any player can play in his own scheme, and, he executes at a high level. And I think he's given us a lot of consistency on the offensive line, that a lot of changes, and a lot of people have played in and out, and he was the only guy that played all 16 games last year. So I think that he's a for sure lock at the left guard, barring some sort of an injury. With Mike McGlinchey, McGlinchey's kind of been, playing his NFL career the same way he played his college career, where he's really good, in the run scheme. He has, an 81.2 run grade, and he struggles a little bit with the pass grade. He's just not as good. He's a 66, which is, a 73 in the NFL, and that's not the best, but McGlinchey's attitude and kind of his work ethic and the way he approaches the game, I think that he can still, get better on that. And I think he can be, a top 20 offensive tackle, especially from the right side. And I think Trent Williams will give the line stability to help with that. With Weston Richburg, Richburg hasn't stayed healthy, which Horst alluded to, and I think Alex did too. You know, that's the real problem is just the health. But he's still one of the, you know, higher price linemen on the team, and I think that makes it, you know, a reason for him to play because he's a high-priced guy, and they need him out there playing. And I think they paid for him to come out there and really establish, you know, Kyle Shanahan's scheme, and he was a good fit at center, and I think that's why they wanted him there. So I do think that, you know, he's going to start as well.
Don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you won't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share this video with other people.
But the 49ers made a change. When the 49ers released Mike Person, Horst, who is going to start at right guard?
Well, Mike Person was an average player that in 2018 played above his skill set probably. Last year he came crashing back down to earth with only a 61 rating from Pro Football Focus. To be honest, they probably should have left Brunskill in there at right guard for the playoff run. I thought it was a noticeable difference when Person came back. He really struggled against Chris Jones in the Super Bowl. Brunskill is probably going to face off with Tom Compton, new free agent, for that spot. I think that if I was picking, I would put Brunskill there. And the main reason why is I remember last year he was going to get his first start at guard. They were playing the Rams, and he was going to see a whole lot of Aaron Donald. And I was really worried about it because, as we all know, Aaron Donald can be an absolute game wrecker. And he faced off against Donald. I don't remember the exact number, but he had him one-on-one about 20 plays. And he only had 2 negative grades in those 20 plays. He gave up a QB hit, and then he gave up a tackle behind the line of scrimmage on a run play. Besides that, he did a good job on him. So if he can play Aaron Donald to that type of percentage, then he's probably got some potential as a blocker. Compton, I really don't know much about, but I'm usually more comfortable with guys that have been in the scheme and on the team playing. And when Brunskill played, he played well at both guard and tackle.
Lynch and Shanahan have usually made, when they bring guys in, when they let guys go and bring guys in so far, pretty much all of those decisions have been a hit for the most part. So bringing in a guy like Tom Compton, I imagine they both saw something there, or Kyle saw something there and was like, hey, we need to get this guy in here, and he could possibly do something with him. But I still think that it's Brunskill. I think it's Brunskill's job to lose. I don't think there's anyone else who can get it. He was ranked 73 by Pro Football Focus, the highest of all the 49er offensive linemen, which I found extremely odd until Ant and I were talking pre-show, and he had told me to look up the video of him going one-on-one with Donald from one of the Grant Cohn's podcasts, where they talked about the 15 rounds he went against Donald, essentially, in which he only gave up 1 sack and a couple QB pressures. I think one other bad play. He pretty much, for the most game, neutralized Donald and what he was doing, and for the most part was on an island with him. I watched that, and I know he had played well, and I know that was one of those games that season, like you had said, Horst, where I was super worried about that matchup specifically, because you knew the Rams were going to line him up over the top of this basically rookie and just say, here you go, undrafted guy, let's see how you handle one of the best, if not the best, defensive linemen in football. And he went toe-to-toe with him. With him, and I mean, that's absolutely incredible. He's wonderful in the zone blocking scheme for Shanahan. He literally fits in perfectly. He's got great leverage and body control. He knows how to manipulate guys in space. I think the big concern is just, can he hold up for a whole season? You know, more than just the 7 games that he started. Can he play a whole season at that level? I think this is going to be the perfect year to find out. Shanahan and Lynch have done a great job of bringing in pieces. And while I think Compton may be a guy that eventually is a sound piece for us, if Brunskill continues to develop at the rate that he's developed since 2017, I don't see how it's anyone but him. It's his job to lose at this point.
Tom Compton is the insurance in case Brunskill can't play. Tom Compton was drafted by Shanahan and the Redskins in 2012, so he's a guy that's familiar with the scheme. He's familiar with Kyle Shanahan. That's the reason he came to San Francisco. He wanted to play for the 49ers. He wanted to play for Kyle. I think he thinks that, you know, it'd be good for his game, and he's not wrong. I think they have every intention of starting Daniel Brunskill. Brunskill just played at a completely different level than I was expecting. Whether he was playing right tackle, left tackle, or right guard, he was just successful on, all avenues, and he really graded out well. I mean, he had a 73.0 grade in his games that he played last year, and that's crazy. And his pass blocking grade was really good. It was over 80. So he's a good player. He did really well. I remember watching him when he was in the AAF, and I'll be honest, I from watching him in the AAF to watching him last year at the 49ers, it was like night and day. I didn't think that we were going to see that type of improvement from Brunskill, but his technique is flawless. Like you were talking about with that video, there was plays where he studded up and just stuffed Aaron Donald.
Dude, the one where he punches Donald in the chest and Donald literally stands straight up and just stops.
Yeah,
he makes his first move. He put his right arm right in his chest and just stuffed any other forward movement. I don't remember that watching game, but I watched that video and was like, "Oh, what?" You don't see that. You don't see that against Aaron Donald that often. That's not common.
No, Brunskill he's got good technique. He doesn't get caught over, his weight over his feet too much. He really stays back, and he does a good job of being patient. I know Aaron Donald got him, but that's kind of expected, right? From, a rookie, essentially. You're going to the best player on the defensive line is going to get you every once in a while. But I think Brunskill has a lot of ability, and I think he is so pivotal to the 49ers' success because if they can stabilize the right guard spot and Richburg can play, then the offensive line is really set for the next couple of years. I mean, I do think there's going to be some moves with Richburg in the future just because of how much money he makes, and I think Brunskill might play into that. But I think that Brunskill is the definite guy at right guard.
You've heard from us. Now we want to hear from you. Who's going to win the battle at right guard? Daniel Brunskill or Tom Compton? Tell us why in the comment section down below.
So I wanted to talk about this because you have Brunskill. If he starts, at that point, which backup has the most value to the 49ers, Alex?
Well, I'd like to say maybe a guy like Compton could. I have to go based on what I've seen, and what I've seen is Weston and Richburg not be able to play. And that, to me, means that Ben Garland is the most valuable backup on this team. He's got starting experience, played in the Super Bowl last year, started. He played well in the times that he started last year. Throughout the playoff run, he was pretty solid. I know the Super Bowl was a little shaky, but for most of the playoff run, he was solid with the exception of that game. He's a guy who's been around. He's been there. He knows the system. They extended him a year for this specific reason. I think they're trying to figure out what the future holds for Richburg, and they're just kind of having him back on that one-year deal. It's just that buffer you need to make the long-term decision of whether or not Richburg's the guy or whether or not you're looking to move him or looking to draft somebody here in the next upcoming draft to be the guy for the future. So I think Garland is the solidified, the most important guy that isn't in the first 5 rotation and starting offensive lineman for that group.
I'm going to have to politely disagree with you here. Mm-hmm. I do agree he's the most important at the moment because of Richburg's injury. Yeah. But the guy that holds the most value would be Justin Skule. Because Justin Skule came in for Joe Staley, played the blindside tackle spot for 7 games, and gave up 2 sacks as a 6th-round rookie. I believe it was right around 10 pressures in 7 games, which isn't amazing, but for a 6th-round rookie that was borderline if he was going to make the team, he was impressive. And his 2 sacks, one were to Aaron Donald and one was to Bruce Irvin. So it's not like he gave the 2 sacks up to just anyone walking in off the street. Against the Redskins, he was their highest-ranked player by Pro Football Focus. Against the Steelers, he was their 2nd highest-ranked player. So he had some games where he did really well. He held the Cardinals without a sack on his side. The Cardinals have some of the best pass rushers in the league. And the way I took value is, you mean if we were to trade one of them, who would we get the most for? And I think right now it would be Justin Skule, although I wouldn't trade him. Because he's valuable, he can back up both. He can be the swing tackle. And that is a huge position in an NFL offensive line. Because if one of your tackles goes down, we've seen how much of a disaster it can be for other teams that don't have a good backup. Wasn't it Green Bay in the regular season when Bakhtiari went down and Nick Bosa threw his backup around like he was a piece of cardboard? So it can be a disaster when a backup comes in. Or I can't remember the guy's name that came in and faced Adrian Claiborne when he was on the Falcons, and Adrian Claiborne had a 6-sack game. And he had like 12 sacks in his whole career to that point. So, I mean, it can be a total disaster not to have a good backup tackle, and he's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think with Daniel Brunskill, possibly being a starter, it was Justin Skule. That was the guy that I was thinking of too. So, I mean, Justin Skule playing, that role of backup tackle is going to be important, especially with Brunskill not available. So, I'm going to pivot, though, just because you already brought up Justin Skule. I don't want to continue talking about. So, I'll talk about Colton McKivitz, the new rookie that was drafted. And here's a guy that can play guard and tackle. So, he's going to have a lot of value on the team. And I think a lot of the things that you heard about Justin Skule last year after they drafted him, you hear about Colton McKivitz, right? They think he's kind of like, awkward and kind of clumsy. And that seems to be kind of what the 49ers are drafting at this point. But then when they get on the field, they're very successful. I have an idea that has a lot to do with the offensive system and the offensive line coach. So they're looking for a very specific type of player. And the clumsiness and that kind of thing seems to be fixed. I mean, Mike McGlinchey, they kind of made some statements about him being clumsy, Justin Skule, and now Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz is a solid player, and I think with them being able to carry extra offensive linemen because of the new roster rules on game day, Colton McKivitz is a perfect guy to have that he can play any position basically on the offensive line. He's had time on guard and tackle. So Colton McKivitz, somebody that has a lot of value, and maybe not as much value this year as he'll have in the future. But if for some reason we have Trent Williams down and out, which he hasn't played a 16-game season in a long time, and Justin Skule is playing there, and McGlinchey, who missed time last year, goes down, Colton McKivitz might be the guy that steps in at right tackle. So you might see a lot of value there, especially last year. We had a lot of injury issues. So I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised and with Colton McKivitz. So the 49ers were ranked 8th by PFF in the offensive line rankings. Alex, is this a good spot?
No, because I think they're evaluating that and grading that based on Tom Compton starting at right guard and not Brunskill, and they have Brunskill rated. They rated Brunskill as our best offensive lineman and then didn't slate him to start in that same article. So it's just like they didn't put the best 5 in and grade out the line that way. So I think it's incorrect. I think they're probably in the top 5, most likely. They were ranked 14th in 2019 in the regular season. Their preseason ranking is 8, so they've jumped up significantly from where they were to start off last year, where they had them, and where they finished last year. So I do think that's accurate. I do think they need to be probably closer in the top 5 than in the bottom half of that top 10. But it's not a bad spot. They are definitely one of the 10 best lines in the league. That's an easy argument to make. I think they should be a little bit higher. I think they didn't put certain guys in certain spots, and that lowered the overall team grade. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is just health, right? Like if Richburg can stay healthy, or is Trent Williams gonna come back and have a good solid year and be healthy? Is our right guard position gonna be static and stable? Because you got a guy like Brunskill who's basically it's his second year. He essentially was a rookie last year. I know he had practice squad years with the Falcons and he played in the AAF, but in terms of being on an NFL roster and playing, that was his first ever attempt at it. And he's a young guy. He's only going to be 26. So I think it's a good spot to start. I do think they were probably higher than what they were rated at. But with these rankings, you just never know what it is that they're valuing, what it is that they're devaluing.
If you're ranking run blocking, I think they're a big fat number 1. The Niners offensive line. And I think it showed against, especially if you're including your tight end. It showed in the playoffs last year. It showed all year. They were pretty much able to run the ball at will. Pass blocking, I can see why they're down there towards 8th. There were some games where Jimmy got hit a lot. Probably too much. And like you said, I think to add into it, Brunskill, even though, like you said, they rated Brunskill really high, he's a newer guy there. Richburg's been injured, and Trent Williams hasn't played. So if you were looking at it from a glass half full perspective, I could see why you'd be wary of their offensive line. Now I'm going to look at it from a positive perspective. Did I say glass half full? I meant glass half empty. If I was going to look at it from a glass half full point of view, I think that they have an all-pro left tackle. I think they have a, like you said, 23rd ranked guard in the league. So a solid guard. They have close to Pro Bowl right tackle, and I think as long as Richburg's healthy, we've got a top 12 center and I think Brunskill has the potential to be a top 15 guard. So I think if you were to look at it through our lens, we see a top 5 offensive line. But I do understand why they dropped them a little bit. But these are those rankings. I mean, it doesn't matter till they play. They really don't. You can be ranked last, and teams will end up being in the top 10.
Yeah, the 49ers moved up, 6 spots? They moved up 6 spots just since the season ended. So losing Joe Staley, losing Mike Person, and inserting Trent Williams and whoever the guard, did they decide Compton was the guard that they put in?
They had put Compton in as the guard.
Okay, so I'm going to put in Brunskill. So right away they moved up 6 spots. Now, my biggest problem with the list is the teams that they have in front of them. So the 7 teams, if I'm really looking at it,
how is Green Bay at 4?
Well, that's the thing is I think the Colts are, I think New Orleans Saints are,
yes,
and I think the Baltimore Ravens are,
yes,
and then after that it's no. I mean I'm no. Dallas Cowboys offensive line is getting old.
I think that they rated a lot of these teams on name value rather than recent play.
I think so, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact that
they talk about Tyron Smith too in this, how back in 2015 he earned basically a 91 overall rating. So they're looking back 4 years in time at his best rating and going, well, yeah, next time one of the best O-lines. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, Dallas has good offensive linemen, but I mean, I think they're looking at the fact that they played, had a lot of rushing yards, had a lot of passing yards, and taking that into account. But I just don't think they're one of the best I definitely don't think Green Bay is one of the best offensive lines. I watched them play against the 49ers and just get annihilated by that defensive line for 2 games. There's no way Green Bay is a top 5 offensive line. And it's sad. They shouldn't even be a top 10 offensive line.
The only one on this list that, from my eye test this year, that looked like a top 3, top 4 offensive line was Baltimore when the Niners played them.
Yeah. No, Baltimore's a good offensive line. I mean, they were really good at blocking and especially run blocking. They were really good. Yeah. And the Colts have the best interior offensive linemen in the entire league. That's why they're on this list. Mm-hmm. They're really good. So, I mean, should the 49ers be 8th? No. They should be a top 5. But, I mean, these other teams, I question why Green Bay's even in the top 10.
Cleveland at 6, too, kind of boggles me a little bit. I felt like... I
don't think Nick Bosa thinks they're a top...
No, there's no way. There's no way he thinks that.
No.
There's no way. That Monday Night Massacre was a massacre for a reason.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the great offensive line play by the Cleveland Browns.
and let's be honest, if you watched many of their games, Baker Mayfield's regression wasn't all Baker Mayfield's fault. He picked himself up off the dirt an awful lot last year.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things, too. It's they really valued them drafting the left tackle this year. Like, them taking a guy was it Conklin?
No.
No, who
they
was
signed
it?
Conklin.
Oh, that's right, Jedrick Willis. Jedrick Willis in the first round, the 10th overall pick.
And they signed Conklin to play right tackle.
But they're taking that as they should up their O-line. It's like, okay, well, on paper, in theory, yes, but you haven't seen the kid play yet. You don't know. And if you're just going to start evaluating teams based on you address the need in the draft, therefore you automatically get thrown up, up in the rankings. Here you go. You did what you were supposed to. You addressed it. Well, yeah, you addressed it, but you addressed it in theory, right? You won't know until you actually get on the field and watch the kid play. So hopefully the guy plays well.
Bob Wiley, the Browns line coach, became my hero after that year of Hard Knocks.
It's true. So the Hut gut is impressive, man.
Behind the whistle.
let's go behind the whistle and let's talk about offensive line coach John Benton. Horst, what do you think about the offensive line coach John Benton?
Well, fun fact, John Benton is also the name of a male model, apparently, because when you go to Google him, that pops up, and I was thinking, that's the 49ers line coach? To John Benton.
You should probably just punch in 49ers line coach John Benton.
I did afterwards. So
after he went through all the pictures first of John Benton.
Quick notes, everybody. When you're using Google, be very specific.
So John Benton has been in the NFL a long time as a coach. He started out as the Rams line coach in 2003. He then went from there. He spent 8 years with the Texans, which is where he ran into Kyle Shanahan first. And from there he went to the Dolphins and the Jaguars. Then Shanahan brought him to the Niners in 2017 to be the line coach. He's clearly knows Kyle Shanahan's scheme inside and out because their blocking, at least run blocking from the moment he got there, has been much improved. The pass blocking's getting better. He's clearly a great coach for that scheme. He's been a coach in the NFL a long time. He helped develop McGlinchey. He's helped turn Laken Tomlinson's career around. Like you said about Brunskill, his technique, when you watch him play now, is almost flawless, and it was not that way when he got there. So I think he did a lot with Brunskill school. I think it says a lot that they were able to start two guys at the tackle positions that had never started a game and still play good football up front. I think it says a lot about how good of a coach that guy is.
Yeah, 16 seasons as an offensive line coach. There seems to be a trend here with these position coaches around in the 49ers staff that at some point in their career ran into Kyle Shanahan very, very early on. Shanahan has obviously decided that, he's going to bring in a bunch of smart guys who are really good at their job and probably better at their job than he is at understanding fully what it is they're supposed to be doing. He's surrounding himself with really smart guys. Benton has done incredible pretty much everywhere he's been, whether it was in Houston with the Texans, in which, they had, 3 consecutive 2,000-yard rushing seasons with Foster, with him as the head offensive line coach. Miami for a while where they were averaging 4.5, almost 5, 4.3, 4.5, almost 5 yards a carry for a few seasons there, and it was top 10 in the league. He was the one that has basically led to Lamar Miller having the breakout career that he had and ended up getting the big contract when he came to Houston instead. He's done an incredible job of with like Horst said, with guys that, for the most part, a lot of people talked about how Brunskill and even Skol probably weren't even going to make the roster last season. And they didn't just make the roster. Brunskill ended up starting a few games and playing lights out in a few of them. Skol ended up starting at left tackle a few games and played absolutely lights out as well. Guys like Tomlinson, Horst had mentioned earlier, was a guy who looked like a first-round bust and is now a serviceable left guard in the league, and a guy who is you wouldn't argue shouldn't be starting at the guard position in the league. He's a solid starter, an NFL starter in the league. And McGlinchey was another guy you talked about being, and you had said was a little awkward and uncoordinated, and the things that Ben has been able to do with guys that most people might write off or might not do anything. They might not do anything at all with them or over their careers. He seems to be able to get the best out of these guys within the O-line, and he's done that consistently no matter where he's been, whether it was Jacksonville, whether it was Miami, whether it was the Texans. And those are teams for the years that he was there. They weren't always the best producing teams. They didn't always have big win-loss records. But the rushing stats for those teams during his time there are always in the top 10 within the league. They're right up there. And we've seen how important the run game is in Shanahan's offense. It's no wonder that a guy like Kyle Shanahan was like, we need to get this guy in here. This guy's going to help take the things I want to do with the rushing game and running the football and turn it up to a 15. We're just going to break the knob off and be able to run the ball down anyone's throat whenever we feel like it. He's done an incredible job. He's got 32 total years of coaching experience as well. So this is a guy who's seen it and done it all. He's great for the young guys on the O-line, and you can see the impact that he's had with them.
There's improvements everywhere he goes. Every time he goes somewhere, there's a drastic improvement. His offensive line group in Houston gave up 22 sacks one year, which set a franchise record. And, that's that's amazing that he set the franchise record, especially if you know Houston early on. You know, I mean, Carr was running for his life. He basically was dying on every other throw.
76 sacks.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And, you know, he makes these stops, and you see the same thing at every stop. He turns Steve Slayton, Arian Foster into, you know, big-time running backs, and it just keeps going. You look at when he makes stops in Miami and Jacksonville, and the rushing yards go up, and the pass yards go up, and the sacks go down. And so I think if I was going to look at anything, it was just that wherever you see Coach John Benton, you see the rush yards go up, the passing yards go up, and the sack numbers plummet. And I think that just shows how good of a coach he is, because he's worked with several different, you know, teams and several different staffs and several different players. And every single time he's had the same kind of successes. He's turned, you know, players into all pros like Dwayne Brown, and you know he's going to be working with some all pros this year. He's going to work with Trent Williams. So I think that the better talent he has, the better the team can get, and he's perfect for this system. He's perfect for the 49ers, and I'm just excited to see what the offensive line can do. I think if they can stay healthy, this can be one of the best ones we've seen, and I think Kyle just builds a freaking really good coaching staff. Every time we break down one of these guys, I just get more and more excited about what he's doing as, you know, as a CEO of a team. You know, what he's doing as far as building with these great coaches and guys that he can trust, guys who are familiar with what he does, and guys who want to continue coaching the way he, you know, coaches. I can't wait to see, you know, what these guys do this year. I think that where everyone sees this COVID-19 thing as a detriment, I think it might be kind of a positive for the 49ers, because these coaches being able to coach players like this are on another level. They're breaking down stuff like we've never seen. So 49ers this year going to be fun, especially this offensive line. Everyone can take a look at the offensive line moving forward. So, I mean, what do you guys think? You guys think that this is going to be the year of the offensive line, that the offensive line is going to be looked at like the defensive line was last year?
Yeah, I think they're going to put forth some dominant performances this year. I think it's going to be similar to last year. They're going to dare you to stop the run, because they know that they can block your front. And that's a scary proposition for teams once the ball gets rolling downhill like that. Getting those 3, 4, 5 yard runs turn into 7, 8 yard runs late in the game, turn into hole shots. Getting the ball ran down your throat is no fun. As a player, as a coach, as a fan, I think it's most irritating as a fan, because it's hard to figure out why they can't stop it. And like you said about them having great coaches all up and down, and that's what great leaders do, is surround themselves with the smartest guys they can find. And I think Shanahan's proven he's done that. But I think their O-line is going to be one of the better groups in the league this year. I think they're going to be a top 5 group.
Yeah, it's you said it perfectly, Ant. He just surrounds himself with the best of the best. The coaching staff, no matter how many times we do this or go behind the whistle and take a look at these guys, every time we do, and I start doing a little bit of research, it's like, my God. It's obvious that there's no ego issue in the coaching staff. Everyone knows that they're there to do not only to do their job, but to do it at the highest possible level, and everyone in there has excelled drastically in either whether it's a short amount of time or whether it's over a longer period of time like Coach Benton. This O-line has steadily gotten better. Like Horst said, they're going to run the ball down people's throats this year. I think the way the O-line has been coached up, and with Shanahan's creativity, it doesn't just make teams have to sell out to stop the run. It makes teams literally potentially have to come out of the things they want to do. It makes them try and be things that they may not want to be, or have to do things they may not want to do in order to try and sell out for the run. And that once you do that, you're playing right into someone like Kyle's hand, because while you're playing checkers, he's playing 6-dimensional chess, not even 3-dimensional chess. He's way out and beyond. He's already thought 12 steps ahead and looking at it from a different angle that you didn't even know existed. The man's got it all dialed in. He has his identity. He knows what this team wants to be, and this team is excelling at being that and then some every day I'm super pumped to see what this season holds.
Yep, super pumped. I can't wait for this, man. Offensive line's going to go crazy. Horse, that's our position, man.
Oh, yeah. Nothing better than the big uglies.
Nothing better than the big hosses. So,
But the punters. What about the punters, guys?
nobody cares about the punters.
The Niners could go all year without a punter.
All right, guys, chalk another one up. Another great episode. Make sure to tune into the next 49ers Cutback podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Anchor, Google Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to click the follow button so you won't miss an episode. You can always follow us on Twitter at 49ers Cutback. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Stay safe, and remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.